worked so hard toward a goal, and then you find that you abruptly stop yourself or you just slowly lose your motivation and you get stuck because maybe the next step feels too scary or too overwhelming. My name's Elyssa Smith. I'm a trauma informed life strategist. And on today's episode of the Unlock Your Blocks podcast, we're going to dive into why your survival brain might be resisting the very success that you're after and how to expand your capacity to hold the good without sabotaging it. You are not lazy. It is not your fault that you do this. This is a pattern that points to a survival mode that you have been needing to exhibit probably since you were young. Now, when we're little and so if you are an adult that has that cycle in your life, then probably when you were little, you needed to shy away from standing out or doing really well for one reason or another. So there may have been criticism if you stood out in a crowd and you did really well with something, you were very successful. There may have been jealousy that maybe you had peers who weren't achieving at that level. I've had clients who have all kinds of memories from childhood where somebody would compare them, maybe a parent would compare them to a classmate or something, and they could never be good enough. So when they did stand out, then they would get criticized if they tried really hard or did really well. Then maybe you are on the other side of things and other people around you. I have had a client recently who had the opposite happen. She was so good and things happened so easily for her in school that other children's parents would compare them to her. So she didn't want to stand out. She didn't want to succeed because it meant that they were being compared to her. And then her friends would resent her because she was doing so well. There might be other reasons that you developed in childhood to keep yourself safe by not shining at your brightest. Now, sometimes it could be because you saw someone else achieve something high and maybe they drew criticism because they became visible or got promoted in front of people. Maybe you're afraid that as a little kid to be mean or to be selfish and put yourself out there enough. There's a phrase in my family growing up, you don't want to be too big for your britches. And if you put yourself out there and do your best and shine your brightest, that can be mistaken, in the wrong dysfunctional context for the child is self-absorbed or they think they're so important. And that message, that imposter syndrome message of who do you think you are? Who is she think she is? Who is she that she thinks she can just, go for this big thing, go for this big dream? So you may have had people criticizing you even just for wanting the success. So it doesn't feel safe to go after it. You might have been protecting yourself from attention. And that's a really valid way to survive your childhood. If you have situations where it doesn't feel safe to shine, it's good that your system protects you from shining. Another thing is that if you are too good, I'm using air quotes, if you're too good, maybe people won't want to be friends with you because they can't relate to you. So you kind of dumb yourself down. Maybe it's in school or maybe it's in a performance based way so that you can be guaranteed to be a part of the tribe. That's a survival need as a child. Maybe if you have seen someone succeed and then you saw them fall and come down from that whatever status they had achieved, maybe the fear of, or maybe you had that experience, like you really did well with something and then you fell, or this happened for me in high school. I won this scholarship competition at the state level and then I went to nationals thinking like I really had a shot. But it turns out you had to know the right people to do well at nationals. You had to have the right coaches to do well at nationals. And I didn't know that. And it was so painful that I refused to really do anything to stand out after that for the next several years. So you might fear that there's going to be a longer way to fall if you're too successful. Another thing that this can mean to your system, maybe your system maybe you learned as a kid that the more successful you are, the more you get pressured to be more successful. So your system is innately trying to protect you from a burnout cycle by saying, let's not move on to this success level. So you might find yourself stopping yourself in order to avoid having to work harder, be better, and do more ad nauseum, just for infinity. So what does that do as an adult? Well, it kind of takes away our capacity to have new experiences, because the unknown is what your system is protecting you from. It doesn't know, can I actually navigate this if people criticize me, if people reject me, if it alienates people because I'm so good at something or because I'm shining so bright or because maybe they're going to think I'm selfish for putting myself out there for this promotion or this for starting my own business. Like, who does she think she is? That imposter syndrome can come up so strong. So, as an adult, we sabotage those new experiences. We avoid visibility to reduce our risk. We don't start the business. We don't write the book. We don't hire a team because who is she to manage a team? We don't go for promotions or raises. Women are perpetually underpaid, no matter what we're doing. If we're entrepreneurs or if we're in the workplace, if we're in corporate, whatever it is, we are perpetually underpaid. And this is a big piece of this. Women in our culture, our society, and I'm in the United States, but this is true all around the world, that women are marginalized and taught not to ask for more because we don't want to be seen as greedy. We don't want to be seen as selfish. So when we're wanting more life experiences, when we want to have a life, I was listening to, it's a great book. I highly recommend it, especially if you want to create wealth for your family. It's called We Should All Be Millionaires by Rachel Rodgers. And I listen to this book periodically so that I can get refocused on what it is that I really want to do with my business. Because to have agency, especially, I mean, really in any culture, you need to have financial capacity to move things forward for yourself and for the people that you love and for the causes that you care about, right? So when you are in a place where you're being seen as, oh, like, she thinks she's all that. No, it's not that for those of us who are overachievers usually. Usually we are the ones that want to help people with our money, with our fame, with our fortune, with our, resources. And yet we are pushed down to the extent that we don't feel like we can ask. We don't feel like we have a right. We don't think we have. We feel like we're too big for our britches when we go after something that we don't believe we deserve. So it stops us. It stops us from creating wealth. It stops us from creating the business. It stops us from going to that next level. It also leads to a ton of anxiety. I can speak to this firsthand. Oh my goodness. The anxiety, the procrastination, the way that we stop ourselves from actually making any progress, the way that we check out instead of checking in with ourselves when we're tempted to stop, we check out, we doom scroll, we keep ourselves up way past our bedtimes. We do things that are not good for our bodies because we have these shutdown responses when success is at stake because we're afraid of what does that mean. There also can be this fear of burnout. So as an adult, you can end up being burned out, but maybe not even achieving the success that you really wanted. Maybe you're burned out because you're constantly paddling and not going anywhere. You're not actually achieving the levels of success because you stop yourself right before you get there. Maybe you feel paralyzed when you should celebrate or take action. Maybe there's a moment where you complete a small goal, but it's like, oh, but now we got to go straight for that next goal. So your brain never learns, hey, it's okay to enjoy the journey. And so it becomes this long, drawn out process just to get to where we want to go. And our brain is like, that's not sustainable. I'm going to say no to that. So we're going to shut this down. We're going to have procrastination or whatever it takes to not reach that level of success because the actual reaching of success means that we're not stopping. We have to continue working. Like the bar is always raising. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be excellent. If you have it in you to perform with your whole heart and your whole being in any area of life, I highly recommend it. It feels amazing when you can pair it with healthy behaviors that don't allow you to stop yourself because you're working your little tail off too hard. So, how do we solve this? What are we doing? Everyone has grown up with a dysfunctional family. Everyone has fears of success. What are we doing about this? So, the first thing you want to do when you notice that you're stuck on the way to a goal, it could be you want to invest in yourself. I experience this with some of my clients that go on my retreats with me that I lead. They will talk me through, gosh, at first I thought, I don't deserve that. I shouldn't invest in myself at that level until some, future timeline makes them allowed to do it. Working through those kinds of blocks allows us to actually invest in ourselves, invest in, the people around you or whoever you're leading or your family, your household, to invest in the process instead of waiting for someday, right? So I digress. Pause when you feel stuck. When you see that stuckness coming, when you feel like I'm screeching to a halt. Maybe you're like some of my clients, you get really excited about new projects and then you fizzle after a little while. Once you actually get going, that's not the fun part anymore. So you stop. It could be any way that your system is responding once you get going on something and going in a direction. Whenever you feel the stop happening, pause. Okay. And then you do a pattern interrupt. So what this means is when we are getting in our own way, any type of sabotage, it's all rooted in self-doubt. And self-doubt doesn't allow us to be present with what is inside our body because what is seen as unacceptable. So when you're doubting yourself, when you have this ultimate root of procrastination or perfectionism or imposter syndrome of self-doubt, it just means your body needs you to get back into it. You're all in your head and your survival system is taking over. Your right brain is like hostile takeover, full stop. We're not doing anything that makes it risky. So, pattern interrupt. You can turn on your favorite song and jam out to it. On every single guest episode for the Unlock Your Blocks podcast, I asked my guests at the end, what's your favorite reset song or pump up song, whatever it is that gets you back into your body. So you can take some of our suggestions. You can use your own favorite song. You can do all kinds of other stuff. You do movement, you can do deep breathing, you can lay on the ground, especially if you can get into the grass, put your feet in the grass and just breathe, be in nature, be inside your body. That is the second step. And then the third step, this one can be tricky. So if you're not familiar with inner child work or if you haven't done a lot of it, I highly recommend booking a free 15-minute chat with me if you're a woman, because I will walk you through where some of these things come from in that call for you. And if you've never done inner child work, I can kind of explain to you a little bit more. We'll go a little deeper than I can go here on the podcast. But basically, you're checking in with that younger version of you, the one that's with you who says, no, I learned back then that it is not safe for us to succeed. It is not safe for us to go up another level, break the glass ceiling, do the next thing. We're going to be subjected to criticism at a level that I'm not ready for. And so your job is to check in and remind that little part of yourself. You are not going to abandon yourself while handling the unknown thing that's going to come next. We don't know what's going to come through the door because it's a new door. It's another bit of success for us. It's another bit of visibility risk. But you can reassure that part of yourself, hey, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to make sure you get all your needs met no matter what comes through that door. So I hope this was helpful for you. I hope you can take your next step to get unstuck based on what we started talking about here today. And until I see you next time, take such good care of yourself.